Hey, Luke, cybersecurity is often viewed as more of just a technical issue, but you spend a lot of time talking about framing it through governance, leadership, and culture. Why is shifting this perspective so critical for executives today?
It's an interesting question. The challenge is that IT and cyber, they're cousins, they're not twins. They work side and side, they
Hmm.
usually work on the same sort of equipment, but they aren't the same thing. That's like asking your publicist to go and rent you a billboard. Sure, they might know the right people to call,
Hmm.
but it's not their skill set of how to negotiate the best rates. It's like asking your CFO to go and draft the whole new contract instead of running it through your lawyer. It is a specialist skill that requires specialist domain knowledge. When we're framing it through the lens of governance, risk, and compliance, that's done because boards, senior leaders, executives, C suite, they have obligations under the Corporations Act. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you exactly what your obligations are, but they're there, whether you know they're there or not. And there's no judge that likes you coming before them going, oh, sorry, Your Honor, I didn't know. So
Hmm.
you'd have the obligation to consider cyber risk as part of your risk portfolio as a director, as an owner, as the operator of the business. You must accommodate that. That what the governance, risk, and compliance part of cybersecurity does makes sure that all of the requirements you need to align to are being aligned to, are being met, and you have evidence to support and validate that they are being met. Because saying you have something without evidence is like going, cool, I've got a pink unicorn in my garage. There's no evidence to support the position. You need to have those
Hmm.
bases so you can build security frameworks upon them. And when we talk about governance, risk, and compliance, a strong element of the cybersecurity frameworks tie into that. They provide a structured, measured, attestable, or auditable framework against which you can assess an organization's cybersecurity posture. That means that you can verify and validate you've done all the things that you need to do and should be doing. The larger ones like ISO 27001 and SOC 2 are generally risk and scope based. So you work out what things you need to align to, how you want to meet them, and then you have an audit performed by an external organization to assess that. Then you can look at some of the smaller frameworks designed for small and medium business, like the SMB 1001, and I'll call out on, I've got the diamond in that level, in that framework. It is aimed at the small and medium business. It isn't risk based, it isn't scope based, it is prescriptive. Whereas ISO and SOC are very, you work out what you do based upon risk and profile. SMB 101 is thou shalt, thou will, thou must. It is very specific and it's really well targeted at the small and medium business space. Call it 20 seats up to 10 mil turnover. Once you hit those sort of points, you need to be having a conversation with a security specialist to work out, is it right to continue using that, or do you need to uplift it to a more comprehensive framework? Because there is no point dropping banking grade security on a 10-person florist. That's how you break them. That's how they become disengaged with cybersecurity and problems persist. So it's a matter of getting the right amount of security in for the organizational size and risk profile. And the SMB does a good job of that. But as you grow, you need to have the conversations of, do we grow our cybersecurity processes and practices with us? I hope I didn't go too
Yeah,
tangential there.
fascinating. From your experience advising boards and leadership teams, what's a common misconception executives still have about their role in cybersecurity resilience?
I can think of a few that it's set and forget. That is not the case.
Hmm.
There's an axiom that's regularly quoted in cybersecurity that it's a journey, not a destination. It's great that you might have put in one of these security frameworks like ISO or SOC or SMB, but that's not the end state. You need to be constantly reviewing and evaluating should you be doing more. It gives you the position from which to build upon. So that's the first thing. It's not a once and done. We've spent the money and we never have to spend money again. Sorry, I wish it worked that way. You bought a car, you still maintain it, you still put petrol in it. It's not you drive it off the car lot and that's the only money you ever have to do on that particular asset. The
Hmm.
next
Hmm.
three sort of tie together a little bit. We're too small. We're too small to be a target. Well, no, you're not. The majority of attacks nowadays are fully automated. To break that down a little bit more, the cybercrime gangs and like cyber criminal organizations, they are highly corporatized. Now, they don't make up all of the attackers. There's also script kiddies and hacktivists and cyber terrorists and state sponsored actors and all other things. But the majority of the commercial level attacks that occur by way of organized cybercrime. They have metrics to hit. They have HR departments. They have support lines for people who license their attack software but can't make it work. They have internal feedback policies of this person is really difficult to work with. They are corporatized. There are incentives and they have metrics to meet. You must breach X amount of companies per month. You must issue X million dollars in ransoms. You're not too small to be a target. They are throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's as simple as that.
Mm.
The best analogy I've got to correlate there is you're on the savannah, you're running away from the lion. You don't have to be faster than the lion. You've got to be faster than the person next to you. And I'm not
Mm.
saying trip them
Mm.
over, but you've got to be faster than them. Because if, let's look on a scale of 1 to 10, most small businesses in Australia, I'd comfortably say their security is what I'd call a 3 if they're doing anything. Most of these attacks are hitting a 4 and a 5. So if we can get you to a 5 or a 6, which isn't hard and it's not expensive, then all of those attacks are just going to slide right off. So that's the first one. You're not too small to be a target. Everyone is a target because it is just a software bot that fires off millions of attacks. Done. Second one, we have nothing of value that they would want. Well, you want to make payroll, you want to pay your staff, you want to make your own mortgage payment, you want to service your customers, you want to pay your vendors. Those are all things you want. And by taking that away from you, they can now ransom it back to you. Therefore, it has value.
Mm.
You might not look at the data you have as having value, but your customer data has value. Your staff data has value. How would your staff feel if their personally identifiable information was compromised, their tax file numbers, their birth certificates, their driver's license that they provided as part of their onboarding to verify their identity was stolen and placed on the darknet? Now, as a boss, I wouldn't want to have that conversation with my staff because they're going to be slightly unhappy. And with the proposed changes they're talking about in the Privacy Act, you could be opening yourself up to litigation, but not a lawyer, not legal advice. Please seek legal counsel. The third one that I've gotten a couple of times of late that absolutely terrifies me when I hear it is, we don't need cybersecurity. We have cybersecurity insurance. That's great. I have a car. I have car insurance. I still wear a seatbelt. It's
Mm.
Your policy questionnaire asks questions of things you're doing, and that's a good start. As long as you have not misrepresented yourself, the cybersecurity insurance company will provide the funding and resources to attempt a recovery. Doesn't mean you will recover. You need to have the right systems and systems, processes, tools, technologies in place to allow your business to attempt that recovery. And that's things like backups in specific designs to prevent them being attacked and compromised through such an event. That answer tells me that the organization is actively disengaged, or they think they've done enough and they don't want to spend any money on it. And that's their right. It's their business and they're choosing to carry that risk. But it's not just your data you're impacting. One of the more common classes of attacks is what's called a business email compromise. They will break into one business and then send out fake invoices to your customers. Hey, we've changed our banking details from X to Y. Please make payment here. What damage is that going to do to your reputation? What will that do to your customers' trust? Because people buy from people they trust. If they don't trust you anymore, are they going to work with you? The attitude of we have cybersecurity insurance, it's a false assumption that that's going to be enough to recover. There's no way that you can guarantee it. Even with the right technology and tools and insurance, it's still a chance to recover. You've got a much higher chance when you've got the right configurations in place, because when a threat actor compromises your systems, the first two things they're going for is the authentication system. So that's like what processes your username and password. The second thing they're going to go for is your backups. Because once they have control of who can log in and who can't log in and how you can recover your business, the rate of you paying a ransom goes up and how much your pay will go
Mm.
up. So we want to make sure your backups are in a configuration that even if they try to do that, the harm is minimized and we can still recover. It's the point of last fallback. For some of my clients, I've got copies of their data stored in an alternate location in Sydney that only two people know the passwords for. So if something goes wrong, one or both of us can execute that and the business can recover. It's going to be inconvenient. It's going to
Mm.
suck for a week or two, but they can continue to service their customers and meet their obligations.
Yeah. It's so out of control the way that people are just effectively playing with their livelihoods and to the livelihoods of their customers and the community
Hmm.
around them.
Yeah. You have an ethical obligation to
It's
protect your client's data and your staff's data, an ethical and a legal.
yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right. Hey, you speak a lot about independence and vendor neutral advice. Why is it so important for executives to separate cybersecurity strategy from product
Yeah.
or vendor influence?
Great question. Thank you. That's one of my bugbears that I regularly preach to against whatever in the industry. The reason I've taken that position, and I'll call out with my firm, we've taken that approach to remove conflict of interest and any perception of bias in our advice. Now, there are some MSPs out there that will do really good work, but they will always sell the solution that they partner with. Now, that could be because it offers the best margin. It might be they've got the best training. It might be it's the best product. We don't know. But if you're not actually evaluating the market against the products that exist that best align to your needs, then there can be a perception of bias that introduced into the discussion. When I have the conversation with my clients, I'm going, look, you need a network. You need a new network. You can do this. I work out it needs to be designed along with these constraints and these ideas and all these other configurations that need to go in. My response when I go and do that is I go, here are 3 vendors I can introduce you to who can sell, manage, and implement that solution for you. It's not me who's going to be doing it. Because I didn't want to do that going, look, here's one I prepared earlier, because then is the perception of my advice to my client, do we actually need this, or are you just trying to create a tail of work for the business? I never wanted to have that be a question. I wanted it to be, this is what it is. Take my advice. Don't take my advice. Treat it as if I'm a doctor, a lawyer, accountant. It's your choice what you do with that information. I have advised you of your risk and I've told you how to fix it. The challenge I see with a lot of support organizations is they're providing virtual chief information security officer services. And to me, that I see that as being a conflict of interest in their duties and responsibilities. I see that as the student marking their own homework. So you've paid this organization to sell you a network, manage and maintain that network, securitize that network, and then you've paid them again to tell you that it's secure. The math there doesn't quite work out to me. You need to have that external set of
Right.
eyes to do it. You get your books, if you're a larger firm, you get your books audited every year by an external provider. You don't just get your internal financial control and accounts team to do it. You need to have that second set of eyes to pick up what has been missed, what has been misconfigured. The other challenge is a lot of organizations who provide that service by way of a MSP, like by an internal capacity, a lot of the cases it's morphed into what's called an account management function or a channel sales function, where they're using it as an opportunity to sell security product, not actually evaluate risk. A lot of what goes on in my world, working as a virtual CISO or fractional CISO, or even in the government, like when I'm implementing governance systems, is looking at assessing and evaluating risk and working out what is the best way to address and remediate that risk through either new technologies, new partnerships, turning things off, or making changes to the existing systems. It doesn't always have to be buy new stuff. It's looking at what is the best solution to do that. So when I say I have that neutrality, I have no interest, no vested interest in selling you another $250,000 in product. If I can go, look, we can fix this problem by doing that, that's great. And I'm not saying that all of the organizations would do that, because that's painting more with the same brush. And there will be some that will act ethically, but if they are employed by the organization that is managing and maintaining the system, is there a separation of essentially church and state there? If they find something critically wrong with the design and configuration that goes against the design that the organization normally recommends from a support perspective, do they have the power and influence to make those changes, or do they need to toe the company line for the person who's signing their paychecks? I would hope they can, but because I have to err on the side of can't be proven, then there's no evidence that I can't verify and validate that is what's happening. I have to assume it's not. So the only way I can address that is complete independence. And that's why I toe that line so hard. It's one of the reasons the only place that I will acknowledge that I've got any level of partnerships in place from a software perspective is in the governance, risk, and compliance platform space. And that's because they provide me access to their system so I can pull apart on a granular level which ones do what really well, which ones don't work with other systems, where there are clashes and conflicts, and go, right, out of the 6 products we have available here, this one is the product of best fit for you.
Yeah, that makes so much
Yeah,
sense to me. That makes a lot of
it's
sense to me.
the same. Like if we equate it back to say law, you can't in a small law firm you
Mm,
can't have two lawyers working for the same law firm working on different sides of the case. In large firms, they've got ways and means to do that, but it's just not possible. There's too much of a chance that a conflict of interest could occur, and the stuff we're doing matters. Like it matters a lot, so you've got to make sure that it is independent and it's right.
yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get off my high horse
Interesting.
now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll keep us moving as well. Hey, a topic that I find particularly interesting at the moment is the concept of cybersecurity
Oh yes.
fatigue. There's constant alerts, threats, the landscape's changing all the time. There's constant fear mongering on the other hand, and the news cycles are
Yes.
relentless. What strategies have you seen work to shift organizations from fear and fatigue to readiness and
None
resilience?
that are really working well, unfortunately. Unfortunately,
Okay.
the cybersecurity market tends to generally advertise and market itself on a FUD cycle or fear, uncertainty, doubt. Um,
Right.
I'm not a fan of that. It's not being honest. You can never eliminate risk, and there's always going to be a risk. And then I could give you an entire other section if we were to talk about risk modeling, where most people do a 5 by 5 matrix, and that's no better than playing darts. You're making an assumption on certain
Mm,
things, but that's a conversation. It's a long conversation for another time. The alert fatigue is a major problem in the industry. Things go ping, things go bang, things go whatever. There's all these look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, and that creates burnout, and that
yeah.
creates other problems because you've then got a retention problem, you've then got a training problem, you've then got a turnover problem. There are some tools that do better things, and automation is certainly helping with some of that. The example, there's a firm I've been having conversations with down in Victoria called Shadow Sight. Great tool for DLP. It's specifically designed to minimize alerts because it applies some
Mm,
intelligence behind what's it alerting on and why and when and how and all the other bits and pieces. But alert fatigue is a major problem. The same problems exist within the IT sector as well. Just ticket fatigue. Oh, look, another problem, another problem. Like the old running joke in IT, no one rings you when they're happy. Every time someone's
right.
called you, it's because they're angry, having a bad day. And
Yeah.
it's the old axiom of both IT and cybersecurity of everything's broken. Why are we paying you? Everything's working
Mm,
so well. Why do we bother paying you all? Like there's no way that everyone
right.
is happy because if it's working, there's a perception you're not doing your job because you're able to sit around because nothing's broken. But when it's all broken, the corollary exists as well. It's like it's all broken, you're not doing your job. And that ties further into more alert fatigue. The general messaging I try to push out around cybersecurity and what it does for the business, it's there to enable the business, and it's not there to be the department of no. It's there to be the department of, hey, how about this way instead? Because if you say no, then people
Mm,
just look for ways to get around it. And that creates more alerts and more problems and more gaps, which results in more burnout and more turnover. It is an ongoing problem in the industry, and there's multitudes of forums working through how can we actually address that problem within the industry, because in so many times it just becomes a tick and flick operation. And if staff become burnt out to that, then they may miss something that is critical, and that creates other flow on problems. Yeah.
Hey, let's zoom
Yep.
out a little bit. For non technical business leaders, can you tell me a little bit more around what a fractional
Yep.
CISO does and how it adds value to
Yep.
the business?
So the fractional CISO is essentially placing a security specialist resource into your organization on what's best defined as a part-time basis. So they work across a number of organizations. It's usually on a fixed fee basis, going, we'll provide this service per month, or we'll provide up to X amount of hours per month to look at your cybersecurity and make advice and recommendations and instruct your technical partners on changes to make, and try and embed a culture of cybersecurity into the business as part of that process. So when it comes to things like going for tenders, putting out like responses to tenders, things like that, you've actually got the information to support those responses. You're able to answer honestly. And they'll be able to start doing forward-looking things. Like, as an example, I went to a major procurement meeting about a month back now, actually, with some fairly large players, and they're starting to push through the tier one and tier two vendors information security is one of the requirements they expect to see in their responses from their tier 3 and some of the tier 4 vendors. So it's being pushed down their procurement chain. But the main thing which we do is we support the organization to make sure the needs and the risks of the business are addressed in a manner that doesn't break the bank. Bringing on a full-time CISO, you won't get change for a cheap one at $200,000, probably closer to $250,000 in the Brisbane market. I can't speak to the Sydney and Melbourne market. That's not chump change. That's a serious salary. So the best option for a lot of the SMB space that can't justify that sort of position is you bring on a consultant that, such as myself, that can basically do that in a part-time or casualized basis to address those needs and responses and try and prevent the problem becoming a problem in the first place. Like having that chat with your MSP or your IT team going, why are you running that particular type of software when it doesn't do this and this and this and this? Can we look at moving to this class of software that actually fixes these problems? IT guys are really good at the frontline cybersecurity side of things. They understand antivirus, they understand firewalls, they understand patching. But when we start crossing into risk management and governance and business impact analysis and stuff of that sort of vein, it's not their area of specialization, and that's fine. If you were to tell me now, hey Luke, go and build out a storage area network to support 200,000 people, my first question is going to be, does HP still sell SANs? I don't know. I don't work in
Right.
that world. I don't know the questions to ask anymore. But when someone says, hey, what's the risk here? That's a question I can answer, and then work with the business to find an appropriate solution that aligns to their size and budget and risk appetite, and even setting a risk appetite and risk tolerance for them, and explaining to a lot of business leaders what the difference between those two things are. That's some of the things that we come in and do to provide clarity around the security functions so they can continue to operate their business and generate revenue. Because that's what we're there to do. We're there to help them generate more dollars.
I really like how you're framing it, not just as a strategic advisor, but as a real advocate
Mm.
for the business, because you're helping them prioritize and actually spot the gaps that aren't being even looked at by anyone, and then enabling them to understand what the risk factors are underlying that and what they need to do
Yeah.
about it. It's pretty
It's one,
compelling.
one of the things I've consistently seen time and time again is a lot of technical leaders have had a tendency over the last decade or two to speak tech to their leaders. There is no point having a
Right.
conversation with the CEO or CFO around CVE scores for a particular vulnerability on the secondary firewall. They don't care. What they care about is what is the risk of the business. So you need to speak in business terms, speak in their language. If you're not speaking their language, which is generally couched in the phrases of risk, revenue, ROI, and reputation, then you're going to lose them. And that's not saying they don't care,
Yeah.
but if you've ever had a conversation with a doctor about a very complex medical thing, they'll use analogies. They'll break it down to your level. You need to speak to your audience's level. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing a disservice to the people you're engaging with because they are smart people. They are running large and complex organizations. That takes very specific skills. You just need to speak in a language they understand. You don't necessarily speak their language, they don't speak your language. So it's an encode decode problem. You need to speak their way because they're the person you need to get on board with what you're talking about. If you can't speak business, why do they want to speak to you?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.